So, hello, you're on the Marketing Blab. You're on the Marketing Blab with Debra. And I am the author of Millionaire Marketing on a Shoestring Budget and DebraJason.com. And thank you for those of you who have been patiently waiting. My guest today, I'm so thrilled that she's here. And, you know, one of the wonderful things about Blab is the engagement, and that you get to see people that you may not be able to see all the time. And Felicia just recently moved to Tennessee. We met at an event in Atlanta. So I'm thrilled to bring her here today. This is Felicia Slattery. I think I have to point this way or that way.
There you go. That way. You got me.
So welcome, Felicia Slattery, to my show. Felicia is also a fellow author and a speaker. Felicia wrote Kill the Elevator Speech. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And she's also written some other books. But Felicia, welcome aboard. Thanks for getting here.
Debra, thank you so much. Thanks for your patience while we got the tech stuff figured out. We're here and ready to roll.
Well, we're not techno geeks. At least I'm not. So
nobody hires me to push their buttons. No.
So for those people who are listening today and watching today who don't know you, why don't you tell us what you'd like them to know about you, and who is Felicia Slattery?
Okay, so in my book, the Elevator Speech book, I tell folks they're only going to remember 2 to 4, there it is, 4 words about you. So here are my 2 to 4 words. I'm a speaking coach for business. There it is.
Short and sweet.
Anybody who wants to do speaking of any kind to move your business ahead, that's what I can help them do.
Well, awesome. So we have that in common. I'm not a speaking coach, but we're both speakers. And one of the things that you write about, given the title of your book, Kill the Elevator Speech, it's funny because in my book, I don't have a chapter about the elevator speech, but I have an exercise for people. I call it the 30-second spiel. So when I saw your book, Kill the Elevator Speech, I'm like, uh-oh, here I am telling people about their 30-second spiel. But my goal, my purpose in doing it is to have people at least get clear about who they are, how they help people, what people's challenges are. So tell me, why kill the elevator speech?
Okay, well, there's a little short story about how I decided to write it. And by the way, I'm on my iPhone, so I'm trying to keep it super still. So if I'm shaky, sorry. But I was speaking at an event, and one of our colleagues, Michael Port, was on stage for his turn to speak. And he said, we should just kill the elevator speech. And I had this like, aha moment, because for years as a speaking coach, people have said, oh, you have to teach people how to do this elevator speech, also known as an elevator pitch. Because I teach speaking, people think of me as a speaker, right? So can you teach people how to do that? And I used to have to say no over my dead body, and I would have to explain why. So when Michael said, we got to kill the elevator speech, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the title of my next book. And so why not an elevator speech? Honestly, because in the moment when somebody asks you what you do, it's because they don't know what else to ask. It's kind of like when you meet somebody face to face and you see them and you're saying hi and how are you. The how are you is just, this is our way of starting a conversation. And so in business, what's our way of starting conversation in business? Well, I guess it's to ask, what does the other person do? And so yeah, right. And that's what they like. So what do you do? So what do you do? And so that's the question, but the question itself is a mistake. Number one, we can talk about what the alternative question will be. But then the answer, what it does is for people who don't have an elevator speech and they know they don't have one, and there's that triggers fear in them, like, oh God, I gotta figure out what am I gonna say. I should have thought about this ahead of time. I don't even know. And for the people who do have an elevator speech, they go, aha, that's the question I've been waiting for. And then they verbally vomit on you. And it's like, well, like, really? I just didn't know what else to say. I just wanted to say hi and start a conversation, but I didn't need all that. Right? So And so, yeah, so we don't, and you know what I mean? Like, I've never talked to anybody who feels like, oh yeah, I love the elevator speech. I love hearing other people's elevator speeches. Sometimes they say, oh yeah, I like to hear other people's elevator speeches to kind of hear what they're saying. Maybe it'll give me some ideas about what I'm supposed to say. But the truth is, people are only going to remember 2 to 4 words about you. So now you have a choice. Do you want to give them 30 seconds? And I've heard all the way up to 2 minutes. Good gravy. Who's talking for 2 minutes? That's a monologue. But who's like, you want to give them 30 seconds of words to pick from of the 2 to 4? Or do you just want to say, here's the 2-4 words that I want you to remember when you think of this person, and then get on with your conversation? So really, like, what are the 2 to 4 words you're going to use to define yourself? And even for some people, that could be a challenge. Like, what are my 2 to 4 words? And so like, that's a place to start. Right. And then don't worry about then you want to have a conversation, and we can talk a little bit more about how that goes.
No, because one thing you said, one thing I think, I don't know if it was in the book or just in talking, that you said, you don't really need a speech. What you need to do is just bring yourself to the conversation and have a conversation. And yesterday I was speaking, and I did an exercise with the group, and I said to them, I want you to talk to someone you don't know, but the one question I don't want you to ask is, so what do you do? So maybe.
Did you give them my question?
Did I give them? Or did you? No, I just let them talk. At first I thought, well, I'm going to give them some examples, but then I just let them talk, and people did start talking, and then that's the way you can do it. It could be, what are you passionate about? It could be, what are you working right now that really has you excited? But I know you have a question that you like to share with people. So what's your question?
Yeah. So, the thing is, it's like, all right, if I'm not going to say, what do you do? And I'm not going to answer the question, what do you do? Then what should I say? What should I do? Right. So, one question, 5 words. You always have your hands with you. So how did you get started? There's your 5 words. How did you get started? And if I were to ask you, Debra, how did you get started, doing the social media thing, the speaking thing, the coaching, like, how did you get involved in that? Right. And that's because I know what you do, but maybe I don't know what you do. So here's what the question sounds like then. So here we walk up to each other, we shake hands, you might have a name tag on, maybe you don't, whatever the event is. Right. And I'll say, hey, Debra, so, all right, we're both here for business. We're both at this event. Tell me, how did you get started doing whatever it is you're doing today? Now, what that does is first of all, it communicates to the other person that I'm interested in you. I want to hear about your story. I want to hear about your background. I want to hear about your stuff. Like, tell me your thing, right? And in the heart and the mind of that other person, even if they have an elevator speech, what it does is it sidesteps that verbal vomit, because you didn't ask their trigger question. You didn't trigger them with, how did you, or what do you do? You asked a totally different question that they can't even put the elevator speech into. Unless they go, and then they go into it, and it's like, no, you didn't answer the question.
Right.
And so you can let them do their thing, and then you go, all right, well, how did you get started doing all of that? And now you can have an actual real conversation where you're having like, oh, one human being's actually talking to another. That's really cool. And that's what networking in business is all about.
Well,
right?
And I want to read something that you wrote in your book. I think that leads in perfectly. It's on page 30, and it says, not much has changed in the world of networking today. It's who you are as a person, that luggage, or what many people call the baggage, or emotional everything that you bring into every interaction that will ultimately get you to success in any aspect of what you do. And I think what you're saying there goes back to what we were talking about, and I write about this in my book when I talk to people about writing. It's just be who you are.
Yes. It's so funny because, if you look at kids, I mean, I'm a mom. I have 2 girls, 5th grade and 8th grade. And by the time they get to 8th grade, they forgot. But my 5th grader, she just is who she is all the time. And she just lives. She sings her little songs. She has songs in her head all the time. And she just lives in her happy little world. And I notice all of her other little 5th grade friends, they do the same thing. And if they feel like saying something, they say it, and they feel like doing something, they do it, or they ask for permission or whatever, right? They're just themselves all the time. that's our natural state of being. It's not until our, as we start to get older and hormones kick in. And like I said, my 8th grader is like, she's sort of who she is.
She has a filter.
She's worried about what other people think. Yeah. And it's like, well, now we're starting to think about, well, what do other people think about me? And maybe I shouldn't say it that way. And then we start to put expectations on ourselves for meeting at a particular event. Like, okay, I'm at this event and I have to get 5 new clients right now. Like, really? Because you go in like that and you might as well put an ad on your head that says,
leave me alone.
Don't talk to me unless you want to be
Go
sold.
Away.
I know. So, like, don't put that pressure on yourself. Like, if you want to pressure yourself, say, I would like to meet and talk to and have 5 meaningful conversations. It's totally different. Because guess what? Yeah, you may end up with clients, but what you will end up with is a relationship with somebody else. And maybe not every conversation you have with every person is going to be a great fit all the time. And maybe, we've all talked to people who are like, well, that person's
get me out of here. I'm out of here.
But for the most part, you're just going to have a conversation with somebody and it's going to go fairly well when you start on a relational level, as opposed to, I'm going to market to you right this second while we're standing here, even though I don't know you or anything.
Well, I love what you just said. The buzzword for me is relationship. When you go, I went to an event once and I tell this story a lot. I was online registering for the event. And the woman in line in front of me said, she was so excited, my goal tonight is to hand out 50 business cards. And I looked at her and I'm like, really? And my thought and my question to people when I share the story is, do you really think if that was her goal, that she made 50 connections, sincere connections, had 50 conversations? Or was it just like, hi, Felicia, here's my card? Or
I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. Here's the card. Thanks.
Well, and that's one that gets to me. It's either, hi, Felicia, here's my card, or hi, my name's Debra. Can I have your card? Before they ever had that conversation.
No, you cannot. Do you have Google?
Right.
Look me up.
Well, one of my favorite sayings comes, do you know Patty Farmer? Okay, so Patty Farmer says, and it's in my book as well, be a connector, not a business card collector. So I think, that's good. What you're saying is go in. And I actually tell people, you know what? If you have one meaningful conversation, you're ahead of the game, because like you just said, that's the beginning of building a relationship.
Exactly.
And so maybe you do 1, maybe you do 5 at the most. But when you said that, it made me think to years ago when I started my business, and that would be the goal, is not to just talk to people, but how many clients can I get?
Yeah, well, because it's scary, and we're told all the time, oh, you have to have a goal, and don't go to a networking meeting without business cards and an elevator speech. You might as well stay home. You're wasting your time. Like, really, is it a waste of time to meet people and have a conversation and find out who they are and what they're about? And what the heck, maybe you need something and you don't realize it. And like, oh, I did not. Yes, I am today. A perfect example. So today I went walking with the mommies at school, and that was in Tennessee. There are different kind of hills than there are in Illinois. I'm just saying. So I was just walking and chatting with one of the other moms, who turns out to be a photographer, who's just kind of getting started in her business and in the area, and because she had a professional career as an MBA doing some accounting stuff. And she's like exploring the creative side of her life right now. Well, it wasn't, she asked me, what do I do? And I asked her, I didn't even have to ask her, because one of the other moms I heard say, oh, can I set up time with you to take a picture of my 2 kids? And through the conversation, I was able to ascertain, oh, this lady's a photographer. So I said, oh, you're, what kind of photography do you do? And who do you take pictures of? So it was really easy with that one word, she's a photographer, for me to say, oh, I know where to slot this person in my brain, and I know what kinds of questions I can ask her to find out more about what she does. And that's another reason the elevator speech is stinky, is because people like put all this marketing jargon in a conversation, and the person listening is like, yeah, but where do I put you in my brain? Like, do you do social media? Are you a photographer? Are you a graphic designer? Like,
Where do you fit
I don't
in?
even know what you just said. Yeah. So I don't even know like what I can ask you next or where I can go in a conversation from there. So, having that meaningful connection. Sometimes it's just a matter of paying attention and listening to what are the other conversations that are happening around that person. So you can go, oh, they were talking about their redheaded child, would you take a picture of my redheaded child? And the photographer happened to be redheaded, So, it was cute. It was like a lot of different directions I could go with that conversation. And I didn't have to think hard about it. And I didn't have to think like, oh gosh, I hope she'll be my client. But by the end of the walk, she was like, maybe I should hire you. And I said,
Maybe you should.
But maybe not. I mean, and however it goes,
Right.
and that's fine.
Well, there's some new people jumping on board here. One of them is our good friend, Brian Basilico. So I want to remind people to tell a little bird that we're on the Marketing Blab with Debra. And we have a question from Peter. Peter said, here is my frustration. He said, I am always and have been a natural connector, yet trying to turn that into $1 is hard.
Oh, it's not. All right, I'm futzing with my phone because I didn't know I was going to be using the phone. So I'm going to plug in. Hang on. All right, so that's a good question. You're seeing my house.
People, this is being real.
That's my laundry. That's real life. All right, so look, I'm back to my beautiful setting now. All right, so being a natural connector, it's really just Brian Basilico.
Cleaning lady?
I got 2 words, cleaning lady, right? I know. So Brian Basilico knows this because when Brian and I met, he was like the networking freaking king of the Chicago suburbs.
Okay.
And he was like, but I know all these people and I know a lot of stuff, but right. He's laughing because it's the truth. And I was like, dude, you need to quit going to so many networking meetings. He was going to like 15 networking meetings a week. I'm not even kidding. Breakfasts and lunches and everything. Lived in them.
He said 20 per month.
All right. See what I'm saying? That's a lot of meetings. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to think like, okay, so where are the meetings that you're getting and as much as you're giving?
Good point.
So, where are the people that can connect you with your market? So that's the first thing. Like, yes, it's cool if you're a connector yourself. I'm the same way. I'm a connector.
Same here.
And so almost every single day in my business, I get a private message. I get an email. Felicia, who do you know who? I'm looking for, we're writing a book.
Can you refer me to someone? Can you recommend somebody?
Yes. Who do you know who could do this? Right. And so I'm a huge connector. Sometimes being the connector, there's no dollars attached to it at all. Maybe they're just like, it's not like I'm going to charge somebody for that. So maybe there are no dollars to it at all. But what are you an expert in? What are you good at? And do those people who you're connecting with each other, do they know what you're good at? Do they know what you do other than like you just know a lot of people? Right. So you want them, you need people to know what you do. So, Debra, one of the things that I tell people, and for Peter, this might be a good thing for you, is when you go to these events, like Debra, you were saying earlier, you can't have meaningful conversations in an hour meeting with everybody in the room. Right. Maybe you can get to 5 people, but if you're the person speaking in front of the room and you do it from your heart and you do it by offering value in your presentation, now everybody in the room knows you and you didn't have to introduce yourself. So that's why I'm so passionate about teaching the signature speech, because it's like the ultimate networking machine.
I love,
because now, right? When you go to a room, nobody's ever like, oh, and who are you? They're like, oh, you're the speaker. So yes, Peter, exactly. You become the expert. And then selling something when you're there in that moment is crazy easy, because now you just say, hey, listen, so I just told you all this stuff. You want to know more about it, or you need my help to do it, whatever. Here's a way to make that happen. And now the cool thing is now you sold stuff, you did stuff, and you're going to shake hands with people, and and then you can connect with people, and it's really easy and it's really fun. And you've also made money while you were there.
Well, I want to read something.
So think about that.
Well, I was going to read something from your book because it's around speaking.
What I
wrote. This is page 136. The more you appear on stage, the more you become like a superstar in that particular market. There's just something about seeing someone in a position of authority, live and in person, that screams not just credibility, but star status. And I'm a big proponent. To me, that's the most fun way to market yourself is by speaking. Because as you just said, you're sharing value. People get to hear what you're sharing. You don't have to do an elevator pitch. You just give them valuable information. And then they start to see you as that go-to person. And Peter, tell me if you agree with this, Felicia, but Peter, you may not see it overnight. Sometimes when you're on the stage and you get off, yes, like yesterday I spoke and somebody signed up for one of my copywriting programs. But not always, sometimes that's just the beginning of the relationship that you start to build. And that's where you start to have the conversation. So. Right.
Well, if you're speaking to the right audience for you, for what you do, you're speaking to a room full of people who are your, most of them are your ideal potential client. You should be able to sell something every time. And you never, this was, Brian's going to laugh. You never get on a stage without offering something. He and I went to an event that he actually hooked me up with. Somebody was looking for a speaker and they had hired him. And he was like, oh, Felicia, you should have her. So we went, and it was like an overnight thing. And so we were all at this B&B the night before, like one of the sponsors put all the speakers up, which was super nice. And we were kind of going around the table with the other speakers. And, what are you going to talk about? What are you going to, present? And at that time, Brian was a client. And I said, what are you going to sell? And he goes, well, nothing. They're paying me to be here. And I was like, well, okay, first of all, they're paying us peanuts. And second, don't ever get on the stage like that. Did they say we can't sell? No, they did not. And so these are people that are your perfect audience. You've got to offer something. And so like on the fly, he said, well, all right, wait, I don't have any online products, because at the time he didn't. Now he does. Wait, what could I do? I was like, sell your coaching, because you're genius at that. And so that's what he did. And guess what? He made money on the spot. So you can, even if you think like, well, I don't have anything to offer, I don't know. Well, you do. You have yourself. You have your brain. You know what you know you have what you know how to do, and people will pay you for that. They'll pay you for your time. So,
well, that's awesome.
I really think you could, anybody could, who wants to do this can do it. And then that's the ultimate way to kill the elevator speech.
Well, that's true. I'm going to ask Brian here to jump on board, since you're using him as an example. Maybe we can have him share his experience on that, because I'm one of those people, maybe I should be working with you. I don't like to sell from the stage. I want to go there. I want to speak, because then I feel like I am doing a pitch. And I think you'll probably say this to me. We've got some feedback with you, I think, Brian.
Shouldn't be. I'm on a headset.
Okay, now it's better.
So what were you going to say, Deborah? What's your thing? I'm going to roll up my sleeves.
Oh, so my thing is, I feel like I'm there to give value and to speak. And I don't want to end with, oh, and by the way, buy my product, or buy my service, or buy my program.
So Brian was like that. What happened?
Oh, my God. I'm just going to start by this. Hire this woman.
Oh, you're funny.
Hire this woman.
Wait, no, point in the other direction.
I'm over
there.
Where are you? Well, in my screen, you're down here. Are you up there?
I know, to the opposite.
Bottom, the opposite.
Anyway. Wait, you're in the corner. Wherever you are, just hire this woman. That's all I'm going to say. No, you just, well, it's true, because, when I started out and started working with Felicia, I had no products, had no concept of how to sell from stage, and didn't really understand. I was speaking a lot. I was speaking all over the place, but I had nothing to sell. It was just, giving great information. And what I learned was, not only that you have to have something to sell, but you have to understand your audience and what it is that they want. And yeah, you were so right. We're out in Galena, and I sold a ton of books, and I sold coaching, and I sold a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, holy crap, I'm making money speaking. What's up with this?
What a concept.
Yeah, and just and Felicia, I don't know if you know this, but because of you and the connections that you've done. I was in Newark last week or 2 weeks ago speaking. I was in LA last weekend speaking, and both times sold coaching, sold programs, sold books, sold all of this stuff. And it's like, now it's like, when you go to some of these places and you don't get paid to speak and you're making the money, you're actually making a lot more money than you could have just sitting at home anyway. So, and there were overnight trips. It wasn't like a huge thing. So paid for everything that I did, you know, my food, my lodging, my flight, and then made money on top of it. So you're awesome. That's all I'm going to say.
Awesome.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Thanks,
welcome.
Brian. Yeah, Deborah, you know, I mean, and you're not uncommon at all.
Well, that's why I bring it up, because I think it's true for many people.
Yes. And most people feel like, well, you know, and when I teach the signature speech, I teach it a couple different ways. The first way is at the end, offer something for free so that you can collect everybody's name and information, right?
No.
And if it's, again, if you're talking to your ideal audience, then the freebie should flow directly from, oh, that's my boy. Got everybody to sign up. You get everybody in the room to go, oh, well, of course, because we just talked about that. Why, of course, I need that thing, whatever it is that you're offering, right? So everybody gets the freebie. So now you can follow up with them in your email nurture sequence and yada, yada, right?
Right.
But there are people in every single audience that are thinking, yeah, that's cool. If I had a reason to get something, I would get it right now. And this is something that took me a little bit to learn too, because I used to feel the same way you did. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to start a relationship. I don't want to start my relationship by like pitching something, but don't do it from the perspective of I'm pitching something. Do it from the perspective of there are people that need to be served and they're making some big mistakes and they're doing things wrong and they know it and they know they need help. So give them a way that you will help them and give them a reason to do it right now. So let's just say, you know, you're going to sell one of your online marketing programs. This is very common that I do this all the time. So like when I get up and talk, whether I'm talking about the elevator speech or I'm talking about the signature speech or credibility, like I lead everybody gets into, I offer signature speech, my main system that teaches people how to do this. Right. And so what they don't get when they sign up online, just finding me wherever, they don't get any time with me. But because I'm in front of them, they get two things. They get a discount and I offer a 30-minute phone call with Felicia that it's $500 of value right there. And people will go, all right, now I can talk to you about my thing. I can talk to you about I'll buy it. And it's almost like, you know, they're thinking about it. So rather than like thinking about the thing, and that sounds kind of cool, and well, maybe I'll go home and talk to my husband about it, or, you know, like they just go, I'm in. And they say yes. If you give them that reason, that incentive to kind of get off the fence and go, yeah, I want to do that. They will. And it's not going to be everybody. But if you do it from a position of service, yes. You know, if you're ready to get started, you want to do something, you know, with this, obviously, you know, I gave you as much as I could give in this period of time. But we're just scratching the surface. If you're ready to go a little bit deeper, here's how. I have a program, I have a thing. And because I'm here and you're here, I just want to, you know, here's the thing of value, the extra bonus, we'll call it, that they're going to offer. And then you put it out as this is what it is. So it's very informational as opposed to salesy. So, you know, we're not going to do sales push. It's just informational. And at that point, people go, okay, this is cool. I like that. And, you know, and if they know that the discount expires, like, great. If you buy it from me right now, you get the discount and you get time with me. If you want to think about it, that's fine. But you'll have to buy it online. So you pay an extra $100 and you won't get time with me. And that, I mean, it's fine. It's only $100 extra. It's not like it's that big of a deal, you know? So, but if you want to save the cash and you want to get some expert help, now's your chance. Well, and I usually will leave with hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars in my pocket every time.
Interesting. Now, do you find that's the same when you're doing, because somebody just mentioned this to me the other day, they said when they are doing that, they'd rather have a smaller group, like 40 people or 50 people, than to be speaking to a group of 200 or 300. They find that when the group is smaller and more intimate, that they walk away with more sales than when there's 200 or 300 people. Do you have that experience, either one of you, since you've both been speaking as well?
Most of the time, the audiences that people would be speaking to that we're talking about like this are smaller. Yeah. It's usually 50 or less. You know, 100 would be a big room for most of like the networking events where, you know, you'd be thinking like, well, maybe I could, you know, polish up my elevator speech. No, you don't need to, because you could be the speaker in front of the room. It's very rare that someone without speaking experience, you know, who isn't marketing themselves as a speaker is going to be talking to a room of 200 or 300 people. It's very rare.
That's true. Yeah.
So so we're talking to, you know, about the 20, the 30, the 40 people who are, you know, coming together for their monthly breakfast meeting.
Right. So you know, for example, Brian, I'll ask you a question, you know, because we were talking about how much you're out there and how much you're out there networking. And you said you've cut it back. When you started, maybe you were doing 20 a month and now you're doing 8. So do you pick where you want to go, or are you know, people calling you?
No, well, it's a combination of both. I mean, this week I'm speaking twice. One to Valley Industrial Association. I can't remember what the other one is off the top of my head, but it's, you know, they're local businesses.
You're so busy speaking all the time. I can't keep them all track.
It's true. It's true. It's like no, but the other, what I was doing was I was actually going to networking groups trying to sell my services. All right. And the problem was, it's going to these networking groups, and no offense to anybody that's an MLM. I mean, you would find 50 people in Legal Shield and 20 people in Ambit Energy. And the thing I've learned about that is those people are not there to buy anything. They're there to sell you something. You know, so what I started doing was getting to find the right audiences where people were really interested in the topics, and then honing the topics into their needs. And the thing that Felicia taught me was not only how to sell from stage, but what kind of products to develop, you know, develop things that are going to lead into whatever it is, whether that's freemium, a free report. I've got a social media self-assessment that if, you know, I offer that, you know, if they want to buy into a program, social media success, I've got that. I mean, I've got some that lead into coaching programs and all these other things. And it's about building the system that matches the audience that really starts to build that business. And that foundation that we set up with, starting with the first product and the second one and the third and the fourth. And now I've got them as a package that includes coaching in the front end and the back end, and then gets them into coaching groups and all these other things. I mean, it really is, I've got a system thanks to this lady who set me up. The one thing that a lot of people think, and this is something I've learned from a buddy of mine, you see this thing right there?
The dollar bill?
Right. It's not a dollar bill. It's a certificate of appreciation.
Okay.
Is if you do something for somebody that helps them grow their business and do something, they're going to appreciate you with a lot of these things. You know, that's the point. Is so when you get out of the mindset as I'm up there to give them some good information, and you can't give them all the information in a short period of time. Some people turn around and say, I want to learn more, and they can see the value that you can bring to them, because they can give you one of these. It's the old adage of, if I gave you one of these and you gave me 2 back, how long would you do that all day? Right? So that's the key, is if you can present to them and say, you know, whatever you're investing is really about creating and generating more income that's going to grow your business and make you more successful. If you can have that mindset from the stage and realize that all you're doing is really helping people, then it becomes a lot easier to sell from stage. Right, Felicia?
Absolutely. You know, and so that's true when you're selling like business information and business services to other business people, but it also works for personal stuff. It works for people who are massage therapists. It works for people who are professional organizers, who, you know, their niche is moms who are busy, you know. You know,
what needs the cleaning lady?
Right? I mean, yeah. I mean, it works for, in fact, I had a cleaning lady who was one of my clients once. I mean, it works for any kind of business, because it's easier to sell like dollars for dollars, but you can also sell dollars for time, because everybody's time is worth something. And so that's how you make that sale. If it's a personal thing, like, what could you do with that hour that you would spend folding your laundry? You know, our service will come in and do your whole laundry for you. What could you do instead? Well, you could go to the grocery store. Maybe you could read that book you've been wanting to read. How much is that worth to you to have that downtime? Oh my gosh, that would be fantastic. you know. So talking to the right audience, you'll get people in that moment who go, yeah, I want to buy that.
That's why I pay a pooper scooper every week to come to my house.
Well, it's funny that you bring up dogs, because what came to mind when you were talking about that is when I was speaking yesterday during the lunch, there was a woman who just started a dog grooming business. Mm-hmm. And another woman at the table said, well, what kind of services do you need help with? And she said, I need a mechanic. And the dog grooming lady said, I need a mechanic. Mm-hmm. The other woman said, oh, God, would you be willing to do a trade? Because I know a mechanic who's great, who has 2 dogs. And I bet you he would love to have his dogs groomed, and you could get your car fixed. So it may not always be, dollars for dollars. It could be trading like that, still, I don't know about you, but I've had coaches in the past go, no trades, don't do trades. But I think in a situation like that, it was really valuable.
Yeah. I'm okay with, talking to people about trading if it's something that they both want, like the situation you said, right. I need a mechanic, and the mechanic has a couple of dogs. The dogs need to be groomed. And then you do a dollars for dollars exchange without the dollars being exchanged. So the mechanic would say, all right, this would be $500. And so $500 of dog grooming gets me 3 months worth of my dogs being groomed every 2 weeks. I don't know, right? Whatever it is. And so then now it's fair. Everybody's happy because I got something I wanted and needing. You got something you wanted and needed. But where it breaks down and where it's weird is like, well, I'll do something like, oh, I didn't really need that, but I guess, okay, I guess,
Yeah, and I've had that happen, and I've said, no, it's like, do I need, bless his heart, I don't have my dog anymore, but do I need a pooper scooper? No. So thank you very much, but that's not something that's of value to me. And it goes back to that value, and so
it does.
Something that works for both of you, then that's fabulous. But don't fall prey to going, oh, well, that person's being nice and I don't really need what they're offering. Stay true to what has value for you.
Yeah. And business is still business.
Right.
So, you just keep that in mind. And every, I heard this early on in my business. Everybody deserves to make an income. We all deserve to make a living. And, and so you're not going to make a living by trading your services for free all the time. Eventually you got to buy groceries. Kroger is not going to trade. The gas station isn't going to trade.
Right.
The mortgage or the rent, the people, they're not going to trade. Like, you got to make cash. So trading is cool, for things that you want and the other person wants, and you're supporting each other, and that's great. But you got to also make money. And don't forget that, especially when you're on stage and you're thinking, well, I don't know if I should do that. Yeah, you absolutely should.
Well, that's a good point. I think there's a lot of talk, and when I speak, I talk about being in business isn't all about the money. My goal is to have a freedom lifestyle, to have a lifestyle that provides flexibility and fun. However, like you just said, we do have bills to pay. We have a mortgage, you have groceries, you have gasoline. So yes, money is important. But, here's a question for either of you. How do you measure success? For me, I'm shifting that now. For me, it used to be how much money I made, and I could have been a success in a lot of ways, but I look at the bank account and go, oh, but that doesn't agree. Now it's more like, yes, I'm paying bills, I'm making money, but the more important thing to me is the lifestyle that I get to live. So what would either one of you say to that?
Brian, you first.
I'd say, well, I measure success in the success of my customers. And for example, I've got one guy I'm working with, a local lawyer. Okay. And I set him up on a system of, redoing his websites, teaching him how to blog, setting him up in the right places like Google+, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those kind of things, and how to utilize that stuff. And he went from having 300 visitors a month on his website to 7,000 last month, and to the point where he can't take on any more business. Now, that success breeds more success because he's telling other people. He wrote a LinkedIn a LinkedIn testimonial for me where I damn near cried. I mean, it was so like, oh my God, he's so happy. And so he's telling other people. So what happens is if you make other people successful, then you don't have to worry about the rest of it. So that's how I measure success, is the end result of what fabulous. I do for my people.
And, Felicia, you might want to touch on this if you want to answer the question, but Felicia did a guest post on my blog, and it's an excerpt from her book that was about testimonials, and the beauty of testimonials, and that really helps you connect with people. You just gave a perfect example, somebody who gave to you in the sense of sharing the value you brought to them, and now they'll share that with more of the world. So I didn't want to skip over your answer, Felicia, to, what does success mean to you? But I wanted to get that in about the testimonials.
Success to me, the love, adoration, and cash of the people I serve.
Yep.
I say that tongue in cheek, really, but not really, because it is about making money, and it is about serving other people, and they don't love you. They're not feeling inspired if you're not helping them, if you're not serving them. And so it's about the numbers of people that I can serve and seeing them move forward with their own success, like Brian said. And, in what I do, it's cool because what I teach people is very visible. It's obvious if somebody that I'm working with is speaking more, and using their information and communicating that more, because they're suddenly everywhere.
Right.
In their niche. And so it's super exciting for me to see that. But, and it's also about, listen, I start work in the morning when my husband leaves the house with the kids for the day, and I shut down at 3 p.m. I'm done, because I got to leave the house, except for on Wednesdays when school ends an hour earlier. I don't even know why they do that here, but anyway. And so I leave at 2.
Just to upset your schedule.
Right. Whatever. And that's it. I just block it on my Google Calendar and I'm done. So it's really about serving the people I can serve with the gifts that I have been blessed to have, living the lifestyle that I want, and earning the income that I want to support that lifestyle. All of those pieces together define an equal success to me.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's, all the things have to fall in together. And somebody yesterday, when I asked that question, said, it's a balance. And when you have all three, then you feel, and 3 meaning, the financial, the emotional, the personal, I think then you're really living a life that you enjoy, and a life that you have value in and other people find value from.
Exactly.
So that's an awesome thing. So Felicia, let's go back to the testimonial thing.
Okay.
Because I've written about testimonials in the past. Brian said he just got an awesome testimonial.
Yep. And guys, I got to jump out because I got to go to a meeting. I just want to stop and say, hey, so I'll open up the seat for anybody. So it's good seeing you both. Hey, by the way, I don't know if you saw it, but we were featured in an article today. All 3 of us, plus a few other people, Ken MacArthur and stuff. So
awesome.
So congratulations, everybody.
Yeah.
Jumping in, Brian.
See you later.
Okay,
bye.
Bye-bye. So one of the things that I've talked about on my blog in the past and in my book is about the power of testimonials and the power of praise. And then reading your book, you had, the 5 benefits of giving testimonials. So why don't you touch on that for everybody that's watching today about how testimonials can really help you connect with people?
Well, first of all, when you give a testimonial to somebody who, may or may not know you, they suddenly do know you now. Because testimonials are, unless asked for, are a very rare thing for a business owner to get. Sometimes we'll get emails from people when they've bought something and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. I love it. Thank you. And they're just like the happy email kind of a thing, or, the happy tweet or the happy Facebook thing. I was just listening to a Blab and it was fantastic. Like, okay, that's very nice. Right. I call those on Twitter, I call those tweetamonials. And those are the only things that I actually hit a star on. So my whole Twitter favorites are all nice things that other people have said about me, or nice thing. Yeah. So because they are rare for people to get. So when you give a testimonial to somebody else, it's like giving them a gift, right? And for the people who are familiar with Robert Cialdini and his book, Influence, now you've given them something. And what happens psychologically, according to Cialdini, is he talks about how, well, now they feel a little bit beholden to you. So they're going to remember you. So suddenly you went from somebody they didn't know to, wow, that is a really cool person who said something very nice about me. If you're giving a testimonial to somebody who has customers that you could also serve, and that person happens to be good at marketing, they'll put your face on their stuff. That's a good thing, because now your market is like, oh, yeah, this person knows. They start to connect you together, and they don't necessarily go, oh, well, she's a customer of that person. They don't necessarily with testimonials put you at a lower level, or right, as the other person. They just see, oh, look, there's her face on this page, there's his face on this page. And so testimonials are really a powerful way to be seen, to get known, both by people in your niche and the people who maybe you want to be an affiliate partner with. Maybe you want them to represent you and your stuff. People who are affiliates very often, or want affiliates, are doing it all wrong. They're just sending this whole weird private Facebook message and like, wait, do I even know you? Like, there are lots of other ways to connect first.
Yes, there are some do's and don'ts for sure. That's probably a whole nother blab.
Whole nother blab. Exactly. So yeah, I love testimonials. Giving them, is a great way to just build your visibility.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in them, and I highly recommend them. And I give them when I can. And I've read Cialdini's book, Influence. And I think you also mentioned in your book, Bob Burg and the Go-Giver philosophy, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. And it sounds kind of cliche, but the more you give, the more you receive. But to give without expectation of receiving.
Yes. And, Bob and I are friends. And one of the things that Bob is always very quick to say is, you don't give and not receive. Don't just give, and not be open to receive. Everybody needs to make money. He's one of the first people to say that. He jumps in. It's like, it's not about being a doormat giver, right? A go-giver. Yes. A go-giver is similar in ways to a go-getter, but they're providing value to someone else, looking for, when Brian held up the dollar bill, like looking, that's part of offering value is, being open to receive. Now, it doesn't necessarily come from the person that, every person that I'm going to give to this person and get back immediately from that person. Right. And that's another, part of the testimonials actually that I talk about is, if you want more testimonials, then give more testimonials. Whatever you want more of, give more of that away. And it opens up this send receive dynamic, whether you're talking about it like in the business world like Bob does, or you're talking about on a spiritual level. I mean, there's writings in the Bible about it. There's writings in even ancient Chinese philosophy. I wrote a book on testimonials. That's a digital kind of a thing. And so I did some research into like really the giving and the receiving, like the yin and the yang of it. You can't do one without the other. And so I just like to open all the doors. Well, video testimonials are best if the person knows how to give a video testimonial, because I've done Debra, you've probably had the same experience, right? When you're speaking and people come up right after and they're all excited and they love it and they're all animated and like, oh my gosh, I just love everything you said and you're just amazing. And I always have my phone, and so I'll go, oh, would you say that into my camera? Right. And they go, I just heard Felicia and she was great. What else should I say? Right. Forget it. Nothing else. So if the video testimonial is a good one, then love it.
That's so true.
I had how to do that. Yeah.
I had somebody do that. He came up to me and I'm like, oh, would you say that on video? And as soon as the camera rolled, he was like, I'm like, oh God, come on. You just said something wonderful.
I know. So wish you could have like those button cams or something, necklace cam. Like this is always on.
So I want to open up a seat. If anyone has a question that they want to get on the camera for, they can. If you have a question and you don't want to get on the camera, if you're not familiar on Blab, you could just do a slash and a Q and then type in your question, and it will come up in the comment stream as a question. So
I did not know that.
Yes.
I just learned that right now.
So do a // and then when I'm looking at the comments, I can see it a lot easier because it says question. Yeah. And then your question will pop up. But you can also jump in and grab a seat if you want to do that.
Is Jim Edwards still around, or did he leave?
I think he left. I don't see him.
He might have left. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
he came along and
he came along
a few times.
He made a few
said some funny things. Yeah.
He gave a few props, and
he's a busy guy.
We have a couple of people that are here from Colorado that are listening into the call and watching the call. And so if anyone wants to jump on board, they can. But I want to, let's see, you mentioned something that I think I marked in the book. Let's see if I can find it right now, because you were talking about testimonials. And you talked about the history of testimonials, and how far they go back. And you mentioned something about a Chinese, now I can't find it. I thought I had all these little Post-it notes in my book. But, testimonials are a great way. Let's see, is this it? Nope. Let's talk about them since I can't find it.
Okay.
You mentioned in the book, by the way, here's the book, everybody, Kill the Elevator Speech. Some other questions that people could ask. So other than, how did you get started? What would you recommend as other questions that people could ask when they want to connect with someone, when they're at an event?
Okay, so you want to ask a question that is a relational question that says, without saying this, I'm interested in you. I want to hear more about you. I want to hear more about your business, right? We've all heard we want to seek to be more interested than interesting. So another question you could ask is like, all right, Debra, tell me right now, what's a project you're working on that you are super excited about? What's the most exciting thing you're working on right now? I want to know. That's a fun question. Mm-hmm. Like, ooh, well, you know what? I'm working on this thing, right? Or, one of the questions that Bob Berg always teaches people to ask, he's the author of Endless Referrals in addition to Go Giver. And Bob says, one of the questions you could ask is, okay, so who is the kind of person that you are looking to do business with, so that when I come across that person, I can think of you and refer you to them? So that's a nice question to ask, because then they'll describe their target and what they do, and it'll come out in there. And if you're that person and you have that need, great, but they're not like necessarily thinking about you or selling to you in that moment. Another question that I like to ask people is, all right, tell me about one of your greatest recent client success stories, or customer client success stories. And so that's another way that, again, without saying, well, what do you do? They're like, oh, well, all right, I'll tell you, one of my clients does this, or they do that, or, this happened for them, or that happened for them. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of different questions. Yeah.
How do you feel,
relational ones?
When I'm speaking, one of the things I like to do is ask questions from the stage to get audience participation. Sometimes I will ask them, to raise their hands or to stand up or to shout out an answer. So for those people who are interested that are here today that like to speak or want to speak, what are your tips for creating engagement from the stage? Is it just asking questions, or do you have other pointers on that?
Well, for people who are just getting started, what I suggest is deliver a bit of content and then ask a question. And what you could say is, all right, so did anybody, while we were talking about that, did anything come to mind for you around that? Something that, is there anything in your business where you've experienced this, or life, or whatever it is, whatever they're talking about? I talk to business people, but, is there anything that came up for you around that? When we were talking about that, what came to mind for you? And now what happens is, like, there's always 2 or 3 people in the room who can't wait to talk. So, they'll raise their hand and they'll say their thing. And then you could say, or did you have any questions about anything that we just covered? And sometimes, because usually if you say, so are there any questions?
Right.
Very often the answer is that nobody says anything and nobody raises their hand. But if you ask what came up for you or what were you thinking about in that moment of, suddenly people are like, oh, I know what I was thinking. And they're happy. So that's one thing. Another, as people are more comfortable with speaking, think about, well, then what could be an interactive style of activity that I could do in this moment? And even, it doesn't matter the size of the audience. You can have interaction with 1,000 people in the room, 5,000 people, by just saying, okay, we're talking about this right now. I want you to turn to the person next to you and have this conversation or whatever, right? When I do my elevator speech presentation, whether I'm doing it as the keynote, I have to make them turn on the house lights usually when that happens, when I'm like, all right, we're going to get up now. And they're like, wait, what are we doing? So I usually warn the lighting people and the video people, like, listen, I'm going to tell you to turn the lights on. Just so you know. If I'm doing it as my signature speech, I have everybody in the room get up and I say, go find somebody you don't know. And I teach them the question with the 5 words and the whole thing, and I have them repeat it back to me. That's another thing you could do, is have them do, it's called a callback. Have them do a callback where they say all right, I'm going to tell you this thing. Now say it back to me, right? So that's another interactive thing. Or an activity where they get up and they move around, or even like a mental activity is okay if you know your content is engaging. And if you've handed them like a handout or something, if you say, all right, I want you to take a couple of minutes, take out your phone and, open up a note and start typing blah, blah, blah. Well, now they've just seen all the calls they missed and all the Facebook and Twitter posts that they missed, and now they're gone. So you want to make, if it's something where, they're not going to be like, oh, good, I get a minute here, I'm going to get on the thing. You can even ask people like, all right, I'd like you to journal right now about your top 3 blah blah blah, or I want you to whatever it is that you want them to interact with your content in their mind that is not something that they're going to talk about or share, or take 30 to 60 seconds and we're going to do this, and then you don't even have to necessarily have the have the audio people play music over the loudspeaker. You just have your phone and put on not your favorite song, it's got to be royalty free music, but put some royalty free music on and just put it by the mic for 30 seconds or a minute. And then, so there's a lot of ways to have interaction with your audience. You absolutely want to do that as much as possible. And then the last thing you could do, if you're really feeling brave, is you can invite people to come up on stage and say what they thought. If I do that, I don't, and I have, if I've got a handheld mic, usually in that situation you do, I don't let them hold it.
You hold the mic for them?
I hold it for them. Yeah. Because you know why? Because then some people will be like, I'm just going to, I'll walk around. I got to meet a microphone.
I'm on stage.
No.
Look at me.
And my show, it's a Felicia show. It's not the other person's show. So here you can say what you need to say and I can go, thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Have a good day. Okay. So, but that, I would reserve that after you're pretty comfortable being on camera or on stage and that kind of thing. But lots of ways to interact.
Well, and I find that's really important when you're speaking, because if you don't know some of the people in the audience too, that helps you start to, as we've been talking about, build relationships. Those people might come up to you at the end and go, oh, thanks for calling on me, but I want to talk to you more about that. And one thing that's really important that we haven't really even talked about was to have fun, to have a good time when you're up there, because I feel if you're not having fun, the audience probably won't resonate with you, and then they're not having fun. And so you want everybody to have a great time. It's about giving valuable information, but you also want people to either be having aha moments, or to really resonate with what you're saying. So,
So what you just said scared a bunch of people.
Scared a bunch of people because they immediately jump to, but I'm not funny. I'm not funny. I don't know how to have fun. Well, and it's so cool that you said that, because I've seen people use humor and I'm like, that's not me. I even went to a humor workshop one time and went, but that doesn't work for me. So, but go ahead, because I think there are other ways to have fun.
Yeah, for sure. So, you don't have to be funny for the audience to have fun and to enjoy themselves. And some people, like, if you're good at preparing funny stuff in advance, you know, your jokes in advance, great. But a lot of people will just say things off the cuff as it occurs to them. And, you know, the audience will get a chuckle. They'll enjoy a moment, right? So that's one way. But, you know, when you're engaging with an audience, they will enjoy themselves. And, you know, there's different kinds of fun. You know, there's different, I mean, some people's topics don't necessarily lend themselves to, woo, every great time, you know. And there are other things that you could do as well. Like maybe you don't necessarily feel fun or funny, but there are things that if you're using PowerPoint, for example, well, somebody was funny somewhere. You know, you find that funny picture, that funny cartoon, that something, you know, and pop it in if it makes sense, if it fits. You know, when I'm teaching stuff about handouts, I have a cartoon that says, and this handout explains why there are so many handouts, you know, and it's just this cute little funny thing. But it's just, you know, it's just you can use crutches. It's not like, well, I have to be that, you know, you don't need that pressure on yourself. So there are, you know, a handful of ways that you can have the audience feel like they're enjoying it, enjoying the situation without putting the pressure on themselves to go to a humor class or, oh, I need to take an improv class now. I got to put on this hat because they said the hat is funny.
Well, you know, Brian Carter comes to mind for that, you know, because he's sort of the king of improv, along with Andrea Vall, if you know her, you know, and Grandma Mary.
Grandma Mary.
You know, but I was at a TEDx talk, and a colleague of mine, this was actually really beautiful. She and I have never met. We've met on Facebook. She's actually quoted in my book, but we've never met face to face. And she was speaking at a TEDx event here in Colorado. So I went to see her, and she said to me, you know, when they called her to be at the event, she said, but I'm not funny. You know, I don't have a funny talk to give. And she went and she did her talk, and there were several times people laughed and chuckled. She wasn't making jokes. She was, you know, just being herself, going back to that, being herself. And certain things she said resonated with the audience, and the way she said it made them laugh. You know, so I got a hold of her afterwards, and I said, see, you didn't think you were funny, but people laughed. So it just goes back to that. Well, I want to wrap up. Nobody seems to have any questions. But thank you, everybody who's watching. Felicia, I want you to tell people, how can they get a hold of your book? How can they find you? Why don't you let people know how they can reach out to you?
You know what's fun is somebody took a picture of my book in Barnes & Noble bookstore where they live. They were like, hey, look what I found. Like,
I love that.
I know. It's super fun. So my book is available anywhere fine books are sold. You can go to killtheelevatorspeech.com, killtheelevatorspeech.com if you're interested in that topic. Of course, I got something free there, or more information about me at FeliciaSlattery.com, and, you know, follow, friend, link, whatever you want to do. I'm Felicia Slattery everywhere.
Everywhere.
So, you know, the funny, a few years ago, it had been after I'd been in business for a while and doing this online stuff. I found out that my 8th grade graduation class had a reunion. Now, I don't know how many 8th grade classes have, whatever. And I heard about it after the fact, and whoever I heard about it from, they said, well, they couldn't find your contact information. They couldn't find you. And I was like, did they have Google? Like, what? So I'm pretty easy to
find. What planet were you on?
Right? Like, I am Felicia Slattery everywhere. So I, you know, look forward to connecting with you.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for being here on the Marketing Blab with Debra, and thank you, Felicia, for taking time out of your day to be my guest. I'm glad we worked through the technological glitches. And next week, my guest is going to be Michelle Hoagland, and Michelle deals with reputation management. So if you're dealing with bad reviews on Google or on Yelp, she'll talk about that. So thank you, everybody. In the meantime, have a heartwarming day. Here's to your sweet, sweet success, and have a fabulous weekend. Thanks again, Felicia. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.